be live in 2, 3, well, more than 3.
Are you going to let other people in?
Yeah, that's it. That I don't have to ace automatically. So we don't have anybody there in attendees, but we have here in Facebook.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining today to hear about brain injury. And today we have with us 2 of our guests from Opportunity Project. And I thank them for sharing their information with us about brain injuries. This is part of Millburn Bike Week. We've been together for 4 days of recorded events, and they've been widely attended, and we're very excited to share this information with you. So the way that it's going to work right now is they're going to give us a presentation, and at the end, we're going to open it up for questions and ask a couple of questions, and then we'll be on our way. So thank you very much. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Julie and Rebecca from Opportunity Project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Hi, everybody. Hi, I'm Julie London. We're so happy to be part of this week-long celebration of biking, promoting pedestrian safety. Thank you for joining us. And my role at Opportunity Project is I handle the fundraising and the marketing for the nonprofit organization. And we do awareness initiatives like today's, talking to people about brain injury, what it means to have a brain injury, and brain injury prevention. So important to talk about brain injury prevention. And so we're going to talk to you about that today, brain injury awareness and prevention. And Rebecca's with us as well, as Jen mentioned, and Rebecca Galanter is the director at Opportunity Project. And we're actually located right in Millburn, New Jersey. So I'm not sure if you've seen our building. We're on Willow Street, and it's a big glass building, green building, and we're down the road from the shop, right? Anyway, just so you get an idea of where we are. And I'm going to hand it off to Rebecca so she can start, and then I'll join back in to talk about, on the second part of the presentation, to talk about the prevention tips. But Rebecca's going to talk a little bit about Opportunity Project and brain injury general information. Thank you. Okay, Rebecca, you're on.
All right. Thank you, Julie. Hi, hello, everybody. My name is Rebecca Galanter. I'm the executive director at Opportunity Project. And we're honored to be here. Thank you very much for having us. We've been in Millburn for 27 years, so we're longtime Millburn residents. So we're going to start with a few brain injury facts. First of all, we want everybody to understand that normally our members go and speak and join us in these types of ventures. It's been a little bit difficult with COVID, but we're really used to going around to different audiences and promoting brain injury awareness. So this is really important to us. So most people don't know much about brain injury and what it's all about. So brain injury can be and is in many cases a lifelong injury. It is the leading cause of death and disability in America's children and adults, which is a fact that probably many people do not know. More than 5 million people live with the after effects of brain injury, and they can be really quite significant issues that arise, which I'm going to go into in a moment. We're proud to say that Opportunity Project has been in Millburn and in operation for 27 years. And we've been serving adults with brain injury along with their families, which is a really important piece. And we also provide awareness initiatives for communities, schools, corporations. There is no cure for brain injury. There are ways of improving the after effects. However, the only cure that is there is prevention. That's why it's so important to bring the awareness to all of you and whomever we can bring it to. We're really proud to say that the Clubhouse Model, which we'll go into in a minute too as well, we're really a pioneer in the brain injury field in the way we operate and the way we approach brain injury and work with our members. We offer all different types of really high quality programs and services. And we have a beautiful building, and whomever is interested, we love having visitors. Just let us know in advance. We'd love to give you a tour of the facility. So we are a Clubhouse model, and a Clubhouse model is a very specific way that we work with our individuals with brain injury. What it is, it's an empowerment model. And so when somebody comes to the Clubhouse, they are a member. They're called members. They're not called patients, and they're not they receive services. However, they plan their own goals. They set their own goals and initiate those goals themselves with the support of our staff. So some of the programs that we offer via the Clubhouse model have to do with community and cognitive integration. So things like memory and working on those memory skills, organizational types of skills. So saving things on a calendar and pieces like that might not really work the same for somebody post brain injury as it might have worked before. And so it's really important that we work on those skills so that they can move forward with their lives following a brain injury. We also work with our members on nutrition and wellness. We work with them on occupational therapy, speech and language therapy, social work services, and vocational counseling. And all of these are designed to help people move ahead. There was the before brain injury, and now they are in what they really often call the after brain injury, because they may be a very different person, and they may be going into a different field of work. They may need to relearn many tasks, such as cooking, independence types of skills. They may slur speech, for example, and need to work on those skills. And this is a place where they can come and feel comfortable and work on these skills quite independently. When they don't come to the Clubhouse, they're missed because everybody has a role at the Clubhouse. So aside from receiving services, they're also counted upon to answer phones, create a newsletter, greet people and give tours. And as we mentioned before, go out into the community and talk to people about prevention and tell their stories, which is very important to them as well. So there are two different types of brain injury, and most people probably don't think about that, but there is traumatic brain injury, which is often called TBI. This is called, the traumatic brain injury is a result of what it sounds like, a traumatic event. So a fall, a car accident, a violent attack, such as an assault, sports injuries, concussions. And this is, it also includes other things. So motorcycle accidents, a lot of, unfortunately, that is part of it as well. As opposed to a non-traumatic brain injury, excuse me, which is also known as an acquired brain injury, or an ABI. Those are the results of things like strokes, brain tumors, brain infections, inflammation, anything that causes a lack of oxygen or an organic change within the brain without something traumatic happening to the brain. And so I think a lot of people don't realize that a stroke and a brain tumor is also can be we realize it can be serious. However, I think a lot of people aren't really aware of how it really does affect people post-injury. So some of the effects of a TBI, and I'm going to include an ABI in there as well, have to do with physical issues. They can be mild, they can be more severe, but most people do have some type of effect, especially the people that do attend our programs. So there may be things like their balance is different. Their movements may be different, more slow, or because they have balance issues, they have difficulty and they need help, let's say using a walker. Their muscles may have been affected as a result of the injury. And so it's really hard for them. It affects the way they walk and the way they get around, which is really tough. It's really difficult. Yeah. Cognitive issues, memory issues, expressive language, receptive language, what they take in and understand. They may need a little time to process the information that comes in. They may also engage in more impulsive behaviors and repetitive behaviors, and they may not have as high of a level of self-awareness as they might have had before. Any behaviors that might have been present, by the way, before the brain injury can be quite exaggerated after a brain injury. And any types of personality issues that might have been there are usually even more there. And so it's harder for people to control what they're saying or doing. And just because it depends, it really all comes down to where the injury has happened as well, what part of the brain was affected.
Yes.
Emotional issues as well are common effects. Mood swings, understandable, because there's depression, there is hopelessness and feelings like this that arise. Personality changes are very, very common. And so a spouse or a friend may find that the person is a completely different person, and it becomes extremely uncomfortable, and it causes a lot of issues within the family very often. And people don't know how to deal with those changes in the individual. Social inappropriateness, as I said a little bit earlier, there may be pieces of behaviors that were not there before or exaggerated, a lot of anxiety, and it certainly affects self-esteem because of all of this. Finally, another effect has to do with sensory, including loss of smell, again, depending on which part of your brain may have been affected, numbness, hearing loss, vision issues. Now, if you add all of those things together, you can only imagine that a person just completely loses who they are in many, many cases. And so it's extremely difficult to function, as you may imagine. So they need a lot of support in terms of the way they organize themselves. They may need different skills than let's say they kept a calendar, or they took care of their responsibilities a certain way. Now they may need additional skills and additional support, or different. So they're sort of starting over in a lot of ways, or they can be.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you, Rebecca. So I'm going to speak some now a little bit about brain injury prevention tips and what can we do to prevent a brain injury. So firstly, we're going to all buckle up in a motor vehicle. Every person should buckle up. Adults, children, whoever is in there, passenger or driver, regardless of who's in there, you should buckle up. Avoid distracted driving. That means no texting, playing with the radio, looking at your phone. So just focusing on the road. Number 3, obviously avoid driving under the influence of drugs or alcohol. That's an obvious one. And number 4, wear a helmet to avoid a brain injury for all wheeled sports activities. So New York state law requires that children under 17 wear a helmet while bicycling, while skateboarding, roller skating, anything that's a wheeled sport. And basically a properly worn helmet is the single most effective safety device available to reduce brain injury and death by as much as 88%. So it's wearing that helmet that's critical. So number 5, report a concussion, even if you're not sure, is it a concussion? And follow return to play guidelines. Reduce your risk of falling for everybody in your home, in your office, at the schools. Declutter the floors and walking areas. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about the medication side effects that maybe are making you dizzy or feeling faint. And obviously eye exam so you can see where you're going. And for children, important to make living and play areas safer for children, installing window guards and using safety gates. So all of these things are very important in preventing brain injury. And for more tips, you can visit the CDC website, Heads Up CDC Injury Center, and cdc.gov traumatic brain injury /prevention, and also Parents New Jersey Drive, which is jerseydrives.com. And then you could also read more about pedestrian and cyclist safety. And again, that website is jerseydrives.com. Okay, so buckle up. The number 1 thing we talked about, and that goes for everybody. And obviously for children, you're going to put your child in a safety seat every time you travel, even if it's a short trip, even if you're going down the road. Safety experts recommend that all children under 13 ride in the back seat. So not in the front seat. That's not the safest place unless you're older over 14. Always follow the manufacturer's instructions for correct safety seat installation. And the center rear seat is the safest place for a car seat. Use the car seat belt or the latch system to anchor the child safely in the seat, and make sure the safety seat harness fits snugly. And the tether straps greatly reduce head injury. So you always should try to get them to work in your vehicle. If your seat is equipped with a tether, refer to your owner's manual for the location of the anchor. So you could, hook up the tether strap. And most importantly, set a good example by wearing your own seatbelt every time you're in the car. Okay, so teen driving, we're going to touch briefly on this. This is a hot topic. Risk factors and what you can do. Teen drivers have a higher rate of fatal crashes, mainly because of their immaturity, their lack of skills, their lack of experience driving. They speed, they make mistakes, and they're easily distracted. It makes sense, especially if their friends are in the car. So to help your teens stay safe behind the wheel, all 50 states and the District of Columbia have a 3-stage called the Graduated Driver Licensing, GDL system. You can Google that. And that limits the high-risk driving situations for new drivers. And basically, you have to go through certain steps to get an unrestricted basic driver license. So that's what that system is. And this approach, the Graduated Driver Licensing System, can really reduce your teen's crash risk by as much as 50%. Then you set consequences for not following safety rules on the road for your teen, and you set the example, and you be a good role model. So helmet safety, we talked a lot about this week, so I'm going to just touch briefly on it. On an average day, 23 people are treated for brain injuries at New Jersey hospitals, and that number may be a little higher, after this was published. Helmets are the single most effective safety device to reduce brain injury from bicycle and other wheeled sports crashes. In fact, wearing a helmet for wheeled sports can reduce the risk of severe brain injury by at least 85%. And as I said, the state of New Jersey requires that riders under the age of 17 wear a helmet while riding a bike, skateboarding, scooter, or skates. Be smart and wear your helmet. If you sustain a brain injury from a wheeled sport crash, you may experience certain symptoms that Rebecca was talking about earlier. Some of them are memory loss or migraines, headaches, speech and vision difficulty, seizures, and then some behavioral or emotional issues that aren't the norm for you. Written, oral communication problems, and even paralysis, even more serious. So those are the things that can happen because not wearing a helmet hurts you. So we talked about this already. New York Cyclists Laws, you have to wear a helmet, an approved helmet if you're under 17. Your bikes have to be equipped with a bell or a horn that you can hear 100 feet away. Most bikes don't have that I can see in the neighborhood, But hopefully more and more people are doing that. They're adding a bell or a horn. Bikes are required to have lights in the front and the back that can be seen from 50 feet. And obviously obey all the traffic laws and use hand signals so vehicles know where you are headed. You should always ride single file or 2 alongside each other when the traffic is not impeded, and use your head and your helmet. Helmet how-tos, just really briefly, they should fit you correctly. So you determine the size by putting a tape measure around your head. Wrap the tape measure around the largest part and then put it along a ruler to see the size of the helmet that you need. It should cover the top of your head, and the back of the helmet shouldn't touch the nape of your neck. And basically the rule has been, we've talked about it this week in other sessions, you should be able to put 2 fingers above your brow, and that's where your helmet should start, right? 2 fingers right above your brow. In order to protect your brain properly, you make sure the pads inside the helmet are flush against your head, and it shouldn't be too loose. And always the V rule under your ears, the strap should form a V and sit a little bit in front of your ears so that you know that the helmet is fitting safely. So if you have a crash, God forbid, you need to replace your helmet. You really should recycle, get rid of it and get another one. So there's all different helmets for all different sports you can do. The most popular one, because we're talking about bike safety this week, is the bike helmet. But if you go to cdc.gov, heads up, helmets, you can see all the different helmets that are right for the different activities and sports. And they give you the recommendation. And, basically, while there's no concussion-proof helmet, a bike helmet can help protect your child or teen or yourself from a serious brain or head injury, as we keep repeating. Start with the right size, bring the person should obviously be there to try it on. That's the best thing. And make sure you know the size that you'll need. Sizes vary depending on manufacturers, and you need to have a good fit, like what we were talking about before. So of course, we're not going to really go through the various helmets, but there's a sheet on football helmets. There's a sheet at cdc.gov for, skateboard helmets and any other helmet you can think of. So really, if you have a question on different types of helmets, you can go to that website, cdc.gov helmets, and it'll explain every one of them to you. And a concussion is a brain injury. We talk about concussions. Rebecca mentioned them earlier. They came up in the literature earlier. We talked about them very briefly. It's a brain injury, so you have to take it seriously. If you think you have a concussion, what are the signs and symptoms of a concussion? So again, a concussion is a type of brain injury that changes the way the brain normally works. It's caused by a bump, a blow, a jolt to the head, or they can also occur from a blow to the body that makes your head kind of move rapidly back and forth. Like, when someone's in a car accident and you kind of get like a whiplash. Even what seems to be a mild bump in the head can be serious. And concussions have a more serious effect on a young developing brain, and they need to be addressed correctly and immediately. What are the signs and symptoms? You can't see a concussion. Signs and symptoms of concussion can show up right after an injury, or they may not appear or be noticed until hours or days after an injury. So it's important to watch for changes in yourself, adults, or adults in general, and your child or teen, how you're acting, how they're acting or feeling. If symptoms are getting worse, or if you just don't feel right. Most concussions occur without loss of consciousness, just, so we know that. So sometimes they're not obvious. Many times they're not obvious. If your child or teen reports one or more of the symptoms of a concussion, or if you notice that the signs or symptoms, yourself, seek medical attention right away. And children and teens are basically at the greatest risk for a concussion. So signs, we talked about some of them before. You appear dazed or stunned. You're confused about things. You answer questions very slowly, or you repeat yourself or questions. You can't recall things. You lose consciousness. That's more obvious. Show behavior or personality changes. Say they forget their class schedule. They can't remember anything about it. So difficulty thinking clearly. This is when, the symptoms they may report. Thinking clearly, concentrating, remembering, feeling more slowed down, sluggish, or hazy, or foggy, or groggy. Emotional, maybe very cranky, irritable, sad, more emotional than usual, or nervous. Your sleep is affected. Maybe you're sleeping a lot, or you're not sleeping. And physically, your head has pressure. You may feel nauseous. Your balance is really off. You may feel real tired. Blurry or double vision, sensitivity to light, a numbness or tingling, and just maybe not feeling right. So any of those symptoms, those are symptoms that could tell you that there's a concussion. So it's some tips. What you should do if yourself, your child, your teen has a concussion, you seek medical attention right away. A healthcare provider experienced in evaluating for concussion can determine how serious it is. And when it's safe for you or your child or your teen to return to normal activities, and help them to take time to get better, or let yourself time to get better. If your child or teen has a concussion, his or her brain needs time to heal. Your child or teen may need to limit activities while they're recovering. Exercising or activities that involve a lot of concentration, like studying, computer work, or playing on videos, may cause concussion symptoms to be worse, or to reappear. After a concussion, physical and cognitive activities like concentration and learning should be carefully managed and monitored by your doctor. Talk to your child or teen about how they are feeling, so that, open communication. If they're frustrated, they're sad or angry because they can't, go back to their activity or their normal routine, or feeling isolation from others because, their social network, they're not, doing what they usually are doing daily. And how can you help your child return to school safely? Most can return to school, or most individuals return to their normal day within a few days. Help your child or teen get needed support when returning to school. Talk to your teachers, obviously as a school nurse, let them know what's happening. And as your child's symptoms decrease, the extra help or support can be removed gradually. You know, other things after a concussion to do, take rest as you need them, spend fewer hours doing your usual activities. Maybe, you know, teens can or children can be given more time to take tests or complete assignments, and reduce your reading, your writing, your computer time. Sit out of physical activities and sports, complete fewer assignments, and a big one is avoid noisy and overstimulating environments. So those are all concussion tips that you can do to help. So finally, traumatic brain injury prevention tips, more of them. If you'd like more of them, you can visit, again, the Heads Up CDC Injury Center, cdc.gov, traumatic brain injury /prevention. And again, Jersey Drives. Parents, the Parents tab on jerseydrives.com, and the Pedestrian and Cyclist Safety has really great information about safety tips, how to be safe as a pedestrian and a cyclist. And of course, for more information about Opportunity Project's brain injury programs, you can visit our website, which is here on this presentation. And I'm going to read it out loud. It's opportunityproject, one word, .org, opportunityproject.org. You can visit our website for information. And if you know anybody that would like information about about brain injury programs, check out our website. Or you can connect with me, Julie London, and I'm at jlondon@opportunityproject.org. And that's the end of our presentation. Thank you so much for listening. We hope that we learned something from our brain injury prevention tips and discussion. And like I said, if you need any more information, please reach out to Julie London, jlondon@opportunityproject.org, or visit our website at opportunityproject.org. And we love it. Donations as well. You know, we are a nonprofit, like Rebecca was saying. We've been going on 27 years now. And one thing we pride ourselves in doing is never turning anybody away with a brain injury that needs services, regardless of their ability to fund their services at Opportunity Project. And we're very proud of that. That's part of our mission. It's never changed. And it's a wonderful mission. And, you know, the people that attend our programs inspire me every day to do the best I can for, at my job. And they have overcome so many challenges and obstacles, and they are positive, experiences on how far they've come and what they're accomplishing today and all the things they have accomplished on their road to recovery from a brain injury. So they're good stories. And that's all I have. So does anyone have any questions for us?
Hi, Julie, it's Jen. I was just very impressed with this information, and I learned a lot about head injuries and about how to prevent them. And I think it's so relatable because we've been talking all week about helmets and bike safety. One of the things that I didn't think about was all the other wheeled sports that you can have a head injury. And there are other sports. I thought it was interesting how you had the helmets and that different sports have different helmets for them. I became interested in brain injuries because when I was younger, my parents used to tell me about a cousin of mine who was injured in a bike accident or bike crash when she went over the handlebars. Her shoelace actually got caught in the spokes of the bicycle, and she wasn't wearing a helmet. It was a long time ago before helmets even existed, and she went over the front. I was just wondering if you had any statistics about how often people are injured on bikes versus in the car crashes versus by sports. If you had any information about the different way, more percentages on the different ways, or the most likely way that people have the brain injuries, that would be interesting. Thanks.
Rebecca, do you want to try that one?
So nobody really knows all the statistics. Let me just start by saying, because sometimes brain injuries go unreported. People will not associate what's happening to them after their injury with the actual event. So it's really hard to get exact statistics. So let me just say that first. But of the people that come to Opportunity Project and the reported cases, there's probably about a third that are motor vehicle accidents, and that includes motorcycle accidents and whatnot. I can't tell you the exact statistic for bicycle accidents. It's probably a little bit mixed in there, but the major in terms of motor vehicle or moving vehicle accidents is about a third of the people. And the others are, as we said before, strokes, acquired brain injuries, and miscellaneous types of events. So violent acts and just accidents, like a very common thing that people don't think about is shopping carts. Children in shopping carts who are not buckled in, who fall out, or they stand up and then they fall out. I just don't think people think about the potential for accidents there. But again, people don't always associate it. It could be something where it happens to a child very, very young, and they just don't realize that they have they're having developmental delays because of it.
Yes.
So yeah, what you described with your cousin is very common, and unfortunately, even today with the helmet laws, I see a lot of kids riding around with no helmets, and adults.
Right.
I think adults think it's not going to happen, or it's not applicable to them, when it certainly is applicable to everybody. It only takes, it can happen to anyone, and it can happen in an instant. And that's actually the slogan, shall we call it, for the Brain Injury Association, the National Brain Injury Association, because it really can happen to anybody. So yeah, those are just sort of a vague idea of the statistics, but there are 5 million people living with post-brain injury.
Wow. Yeah, and you said 23 people per day get have a serious injury. One question that one thing that I noticed when you're mentioning was about the use of the word accidents. And one thing that I learned from volunteering for pedestrian safety organizations and transportation management organizations is they use the word crashes or collisions instead of accidents, because they say that every vehicle crash or motorcycle or incident is preventable. And they say by using the word accident, we're sort of giving way that there wasn't some way to prevent it. And as you're saying, it's that brain injury starts with prevention. And so I catch myself, I use the word accident. I'm like, crash, because it's the language and the way that we think about it. And if we start all thinking about that these things are preventable, and that if it wasn't due to somebody veering or opening a car door, like when you're riding your bike, or a pothole or something happening, it might have been prevented if you were paying more attention or going more slowly, or it depends. It depends on each individual. Really, you've seen one brain injury, so there are people who were hit by a drunk driver. As a matter of fact, somebody changing a tire out on the highway got hit by a drunk driver. Okay, so to me, he would consider that an accident, a terrible, terrible accident. He certainly didn't do anything risky, or at least he wasn't trying to do that. But it really, there are accidents, but I understand what you're saying, because there's also risky behaviors in there that certainly are preventable. And then it depends on who receives the brain injury, right? If it's the person who has inadvertently caused somebody to have a brain injury, either themselves or someone else, it can really just affect anybody.
And so that's why it's just really important. The awareness is really the key part. And listening to some of our members' stories really is a wake-up call to just say, gee, this really can happen to anybody. And, you know, teenagers think they're invincible, you know, they probably, and I hate to say just teenagers, adults do it too. They engage in risky behaviors, and many times that can result in a brain injury, but they certainly didn't intend for it to happen. So it's an interesting question, the word accident, you know. Nobody.
We have some questions. They said, do you teach children about not going on a bike out of the driveway, and about not driving in the middle of the street, even when cars aren't coming? I guess people see that a lot in their neighborhood. And, you know, do you have any comments about, you know, I think you answered it when you used the word risky. I think the engagement and risky behavior, we see that a lot in Millburn, right? That kids and on the police forum a couple of nights ago, we heard from our police staff that they see all the time, and but they're partners, and so they issue warnings, and they try to engage the community to understand through programs like this. So hopefully they won't engage in this risky behavior. Because it is dangerous going on a bike zipping out of the driveways and not paying attention.
You know, I was thinking as you're speaking, you know, defensive driving classes, you know, this reminds me of this because you can't prevent everything, but I think it's teaching your children and the adults being aware that you cannot assume that other people are being careful. You have to assume, unfortunately, the worst. Like if you're driving through an intersection, hopefully everybody doesn't just drive without using their peripheral vision and being aware of what possibly could happen. And so I think it's the same that the children have to be taught from a very young age that unfortunately you just can't assume everybody's doing the right thing. You know, you have to protect yourself by that defensive driving, defensive behavior, right? Preventive, I'm going to call it, just awareness of your environment and the risks that are out there that you may not be able to control, you know, but doing your best to just have that awareness and scanning of your environment all the time. That would be my suggestion.
Yes, well, thank you very much for your information. We're going to end it now and let everyone enjoy their Friday. We thank everyone.
One more question.
Oh, one more question.
One more question.
Are there safety bike courses in schools? That's a very good question. I'm not sure if Opportunity Project offers them, but I know that I can answer that if you guys
thank you. That'd be great.
I know often in my town, I don't live in Millburn, but in my township, we offer a bike rodeo and a safety town. We're actually working on that now, where it's run through either a committee or the police department. I'm not aware of anything through the schools, but I'd love to hear, Jen.
So we participate in Millburn. We're part of Safe Routes to School. All of our schools are Safe Routes to School certified. We work with Trans Options, who is our transportation management agency, and they get money from the U.S. Department of Transportation that then goes to the New Jersey Department of Transportation. That's then given down to these organizations, and they do exactly what you're saying, Rebecca. They do bike rodeos. They do these traffic towns where they go into schools and they'll set up the gym like a fake street, and then they guide the kids through it. And then also for Bike Week, we had volunteers from Sensational Therapies, which is a local occupational therapist in Short Hills. If they're down in Short Hills, that they volunteered, and they do bike trainings for kids. They're called Sensational Therapies if you want to Google them. And They're occupational therapists and they teach children to ride bikes. And then also the police do go into the schools and do, or pre-COVID. And so, and I'm sure post-COVID also. So there are opportunities for our children. Thank you for the questions. Jorge, are there any more questions?
Please, no more questions.
All right. Our audience was great. Thank you, everybody, for your participation, and have a wonderful weekend. Thank you. And
thank you.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you. Thanks, Jen. Thanks, Jorge. Good night.
Good night. Be safe.